Chapter 4 Izuku looked out at the cold winter landscape that had greeted him on his first day back to UA after winter break and sniffled his nose. He wasn't really sick, but just looking at the blanket of snow that was still damaged from the students and faculty moving about was enough to make him want to spend the whole day bundled up and drinking hot soup. It was already 10, normally snow was a once-a-year thing and only lasted until noon at the latest, but today was proving to be an exception as snow still drifted downwards lazily. It also didn't help that on his first day back he had been given a giant workload, evaluating applications for the first years that will be joining in 4 months. Logically it made sense, after all, he had the lightest workload. And with his knowledge of quirks and his background, it made sense that he should have at least some voice in deciding where students should and shouldn't go, especially with how the entrance exam normally works. Giant robots just didn't do it with more subtle quirks. Maybe he should think of developing some other exam, or even take it upon himself to interview the students. Nisa might go with it, at least for this year, until he could take on more classes. Ideally, he'd be able to teach the first years and second years for the hero course. And assuming Izuku didn't expel his class again, that would give him 4 classes a day, which was technically doable. He sighed, shuffling the triple-stacked boxes filled with applications and headed towards the faculty room. The real reason was simple: he had been late for the meeting and had been volunteered for the task. This was going to cut in on his time for coming up with new ways to train his students. With any luck, he should be able to get through at least half a box before his class started. Good thing he had an afternoon class. Today he'd just have to evaluate his students' growth and discuss ways to train their quirks. The sports festival was 5 months away after all. He needed to keep his promise to Izuku-sensei. But that was going to be rough. His students were progressing, but they haven't exactly made any major breakthroughs. Who knows, maybe some of them will surprise me today. A lot could happen in 10 days. Izuku-sensei, he heard the ever-familiar voice of Nejire Hado call to him, her head appearing from one side of the pile of boxes. Her typical cheerful expression was mixed with her usual curiosity. Her long blue hair hung to one side. What are you doing? Nejire. He stopped, shifting the weight of the boxes before his fingers tore off. Why was paper so heavy? I'm charged with reviewing some of the applications for the new first years. What? I thought there was like 1 million applications a year. Nejire popped her head around the other side, looking up and down the tower of boxes. It was getting rather heavy. This doesn't look like 1 million applications, Izuku-sensei. Well, these aren't the hero course applications, most of them are for support and general course. He took a breath and tried to straighten his shoulders. He should probably start working out, just enough to not struggle with paperwork. And Izuku-sensei, Nejire hummed, moving in front of the boxes, fingers lacing into the topmost box carrying holes. Do you not like it? If she took that box she could call him whatever she wanted. His arms breathed a sigh of relief when that topmost box began to slide forward. No, it's fine, I'm more used to being called Izuku anyways, it's just different. Oof, heavy. The box slipped free and Nejire went down with it before she popped right back up. There, now you can see too. You're a lifesaver, Nejire. He smiled and continued on his way to the faculty room. But why Izuku-sensei? She tilted her head that was eye level with him, as she continued to move smoothly forward, the box held high on her chest. Is this the part where I ask, how is Izuku-sensei? Oh, or what? Is Izuku-sensei? Nejire. She giggled, spinning around with her usual energy to the other side of him. Sorry sensei, it's just that I'm really happy you're my teacher. I feel like I've learned the most with you, so I wanted to call you Izuku-sensei. That makes me glad to hear, Nejire. You can call me that, but the other teachers might think it's rude. He watched as she continued to look him right in the face, her smile not once fading even as she walked backward in front of him. Why do you keep circling around me like that? I said it was fine. Oh, I know, I'm just waiting for you to notice. She beamed, her blue eyes dancing like she had just aced a test. He raised an eyebrow. Notice something? Why was it that whenever a girl wanted him to notice something he just couldn't? Sure, his only example was Melissa, who had wanted him to notice her new haircut. But Nejire's hair was the exact same. Or was it? It was long and still slowly curled in a twin helix. Did you get a new haircut? Izuku-sensei? Nejire snorted and rolled her eyes. She bit her lip before lifting up her foot. No, but I'll give you a hint, look at my feet. He looked down. Her feet weren't touching the ground. She was hovering. She could hover, while holding a box, and move. The boxes he was holding fell to the ground, sending papers everywhere. Wah! A noise escaped him as he looked at the empty ground below Nejire, then back up at her to see her smiling widely. Nejire? You're flying. He ran over to her and she dropped her own box, embracing him in a hug. I know. Congratulations? How'd you do it? What was the breakthrough? How much time did you spend practicing during the break? The hallway spun, his feet off the ground. This is amazing. You can even carry a person. They were both laughing. I don't know. I was just at home one day cooking dinner and just being happy and thinking about class, then I realized I should try to do some small stuff, but I was already floating. She half giggled, diving forward as her hair began to envelop him, her feet kicking like she was doggy paddling through the water. Since then I've been able to fly easily, sometimes without thinking. That's amazing. Midoriya-sensei. Aizawa-sensei's voice was like a cold blanket that made him realize several things. The applications were now all over the floor, he was being loud right next to a classroom, and he was currently hugging a student while floating a few inches off the ground. What are you doing? Oh, he looked at the ground, then at Aizawa-sensei, then at Nejire. Can you put me down, Nejire? Sure. She guided them down and let go of him. She landed on her own feet and fell forward, catching herself on his shoulder. Sorry, Izuku-sensei. She laughed, trying not to look at Aizawa directly. I should get back to class. I'll see you later. She ran off, bowing at Aizawa along the way. Sorry, Aizawa-sensei. The scruffy-looking teacher nodded. His gaze was cold and uncaring. Try to be less noisy in the future, Midoriya-sensei. You are a teacher here. Right. He saluted, saying the word just loud enough to make himself wince. Sorry. Sensei, I've just been working with her for half a year on that, and it's fine. Your eagerness and genuine excitement are why the students like you. Just don't get carried away. Aizawa placed a single hand on his shoulder before walking away, leaving him alone with 3 heavy boxes and a pile of papers to pick up. So much for getting anything done before his own class started. XXXX. Normally, on the first day back from break, you're half asleep and ready to crawl back into bed. Yu rested one elbow on the cafeteria table, her other hand tapping her chopsticks like they were a set of drumsticks. Yu had changed again. She got a new piercing over her right eye, and her hair had grown out a bit, now reaching her neck, and was dyed a royal purple that just made her pop. Nejire hummed, a bite of rice still in her mouth as she plucked away at her food. She blinked at Yu, trying to figure out what her friend was saying. Why wouldn't she be happy to be back to school? It was where her friends were, and she got to see Izuku-sensei again, and she had been so excited to show off all of her hard work to Izuku-sensei. Maybe she shouldn't have said it just happened. He might have praised her more. She did spend all break in her apartment playing the longest game of The Floor is Lava ever. It made her stomach hurt like she had to poop and had just done a basal lion sit ups. But it was worth it. Yu tapped the table again. So Spill, why are you so happy? Why wouldn't I be happy? She squealed, kicking her legs under the table as she took another bite of her lunch. I get to see my friends again. I got to show off my new flying skill to Izuku-sensei, and I got to see him again. I'm so excited about what we're going to do in class today. I bet he has a super awesome lesson planned for us, like how before break we talked about how generally each generation of quirks are becoming more complex. Oh, or how certain countries handle quirks differently, with places like the United. Seriously, Nejire, if you don't stop gushing about how great Midoriya-sensei is, I'm going to start thinking you have a crush on him or something. Yu sighed, sitting back down to pick at her food. But I guess he is a pretty good teacher, just wish he'd do more lecture for the support and general course. A crush? Nejire blinked, looking down at her food. She had a crush on a few classmates before and even dated one of them in middle school before she came to UA, but now any crush she had lasted a few minutes until she got distracted by something. But she didn't get distracted with Izuku-sensei. He could keep her attention without even trying, and he was always so nice, cheerful, and eager to help, and he was smart. But did she have a crush on him? How did she normally realize she had a crush on someone? She thought they looked cute, and Izuku-sensei was cute. She wanted to see them smile. Izuku-sensei's smile made her day whenever she saw it. She wanted to impress them. Half the reason why she tried so hard to learn to fly was so that Izuku-sensei would be proud of her. And she wanted to hold their hands and kiss them and do couple stuff. Did she want to do those things with Izuku-sensei? It was easy to picture him holding her hand as they walked through the snow, her humming and skipping with every step. She'd sneak glances at him, their eyes meeting and lingering as they smiled at each other. He'd say something silly, they'd laugh, then when no one was looking he'd lean over and kiss her on her ear, taking her by surprise as her entire body warmed up. Yep, she wanted that. You're right. She sat with her back straight as she continued to eat her meal. How should she go about it though? How old was Izuku-sensei? Did he have a girlfriend? She should ask him. If he did, it was no big deal. It was Izuku-sensei's happiness that mattered most. Yu looked up from her food, her pierced eyebrow raised. Right about what? And you know you're floating, right? She looked down and saw that somehow she had started to float. This was the power of Izuku-sensei. With her tongue out she slowly navigated back down onto the bench. Landing was still the hard part. Oh, sorry, that happens now. But, what was I right about? Yu gave her a small smile, twirling her chopsticks between two fingers while sighing. I mean, I'm normally right, but what specifically? Oh, about me having a crush on Izuku-sensei. She smiled and caught herself about to float again. First, she had problems floating, now she was having problems not floating. She knew she should have been worried when she found herself napping while floating. Yu dropped her chopsticks, a fake smile on her face. Could you repeat that, Nejire? I think I misheard you. I have a crush on Izuku-sensei, she repeated, shoveling more rice into her stomach. That's what I thought you said. Yu sighed, her head sinking downward. You know he's a teacher, right? Yep. She nodded. He was a good teacher too. Actually, him being a teacher might have had something to do with why she liked him. He was a responsible adult and he just made her happy. Yu's hands fell on top of her head, pulling at her purple locks. And you know that he's old, right? What? No, he's not. He turned 21 over the summer, and his birthday is only 3 before mine, so he's like 4 years older than me. My dad is 8 years older than my mom, and they might have started dating when her mom had just graduated. Lots of girls married older men. Or maybe that was just her family. Yu groaned. That's not the point. Your dad wasn't your mom's teacher. Seriously, Nejire, you shouldn't go after him if you don't want him to lose his job or something. Oh, that's okay, she hummed, plucking another bite of rice. I can wait until I graduate before we get serious. Yu only groaned. Besides, teasing Izuku-sensei for a whole year sounded like fun. XXXX, keep it up, Tamaki, you're getting more versatile with your quirk. Izuku smiled at his shy student. Tamaki lurched forward, hand over his mouth like he was going to puke, and shuddered. A mass of octopus tentacles and crab claws retreated back into his body as he headed toward the nearest wall to hide. Right, then Tamaki, we'll work on you taking praise next. You're doing great. The black-haired student nodded. Looking over his students, he found that all of them had come back from their short break far more eager than before. Even a few of the lackadaisical ones were giving it their all. Was he beaming with pride? It felt like he was beaming with pride. He looked at his clipboard, and flipped through the sheets. All right, who's next? Izuku-sensei. Nejire called, darting over to him. She moved gracefully through the air, closer to a fairy than any bird that he could think of. With her hair following after her like a comet's tail, she circled him, a wide smile on her face. I did the obstacle course. She held up her hands. 10 times. I told you it would be easy. Now, what's next? That's great, Nejire. Now we just need to work on you using your blasts while flying. He headed towards the pile of equipment and dug around until he found some flags. These should do. Why don't you? He turned to see her face upside down and inches from his own face. Like any warm-blooded man that had rarely been this close to another person, let alone a female, he froze, dropping the flags he had gotten out, his clipboard slipping from his fingers. Why are you so close? He squeaked. Am I? Nejire backed away and righted herself in the air, hands clasped behind her back. Her control truly was remarkable. She stuck out her tongue, leaning forward in the air. You didn't say that this morning when you hugged me. What? His face felt red as he remembered Izuku's judgmental eyes. That was different. You just surprised me with your ability to fly and I got excited. Nejire laughed, spinning in the air before darting down to pick up his clipboard and the flags. I'm just teasing you, Izuku-sensei. I like hugs. She gave him back his clipboard. I'm okay with getting a hug from you whenever. Oh, well. He probably shouldn't say anything to that if he wanted to keep his job. That's, good to hear, Nejire. Thank you. Now for your training. You should set these up around the obstacle course and try and blast them while flying. She took a set of flags in each hand and began to wave them about like they were a pair of wings. That sounds like fun. He coughed, rubbing the back of his head and looking over at another set of students that were working on their own quirks. Yep, that's pretty much the plan. I was also going to say you should try to use your quirk to move as much as possible to increase your endurance, but I can see you're already doing that. Yep. Nejire cheered, holding up one hand like the flags were a pom-pom. Flying is fun. She then blinked and flew down beside him once more. Hey, Izuku-sensei, do you live alone? Yes, why? Just curious is all. Nejire smiled before darting away. Chapter 5. You're Hitachi Shinso, right? Izuku smiled at the young purple-haired teen. As he entered the empty classroom Yue had loaned him for the day, the large table in front of him held a wide assortment of papers, folders, and documents spread out like a professionally catered meal at a wedding. He stood, placing one hand onto the table to move Hitashi's file closer to him, while at the same time offering his hand to one of his potential students. He was told that there was going to be another interviewer with him, but they hadn't shown up for the past 6. That's right. Shinso nodded and took his hand. He had a strong handshake that was betrayed by his tired expression. Poor kid wasn't even out of middle school and he already looked like some of the cram students on I-Island. And you are? Oh, right, I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'll be teaching quirk theory to the first and second years. It's actually why I called you in for an interview. Even after 6 such interviews today, he still wasn't quite used to this whole process. He was so used to being the interviewee that he was ready to be on edge whenever someone entered the room. Hitachi scratched the back of his head, unwilling to meet his eyes. Is that something new they're teaching to the general ed students? Not at all. As much as I'd love to teach the general ed kids as well, I'll be busy teaching the hero and support course, although the support course will be more an opt-out elective type class. Kind of like the workshop, but different hours. He waved his hand and looked down at Hitashi's file. There was a lot of good things, but one glaring negative stood out to him. So, why bring me here if you're not going to teach the general ed students? Hitashi's politeness vanished as the student to be ground his teeth. That feeling of frustration, the feeling of anger, Izuku knew them well. It says here that your quirk is a limited form of voice control that's activated by your voice, and that you call it brainwashing. It really is a potentially powerful quirk and very well suited for Dash. He paused when Hitashi's fists clenched for just a moment. Is something wrong? The young man let out a breath, his shoulders slouching as he relaxed. Sorry Midoriya-sensei, it's just I'm used to people saying that my quirk is well suited for being a villain. He looked at the chart, and tilted his head to the side, then looked at Hitachi. Oh, I suppose it would. But that's not why you chose UA, and I doubt you chose UA for its general education course. So, Hitachi, the primary reason for this interview can be boiled down to a single question. Hitashi's eyes grew wide as he spoke and the hints of a smile also began to bloom. Poor kid smiled like Izuku-sensei. Did you choose UA because you wanted to be a hero? It felt really good to ask that question. It almost felt like he was a real teacher really helping someone find their path in life. And the look on Hitashi's face made all those years of studying, cramming, and planning worth it all over again. Yeah, that's right. How did you know? Because it was the same reason why I wanted to apply to UA when I was your age. Back then, I thought that if I got into the general course, then there was a chance, however small, that I might be able to make it into the hero course. He shrugged and let out a sigh. But I didn't even make it that far, and instead, someone else showed me a different way. He should send Dave a gift basket. But you're not like me. You have a quirk, a subtle one that's powerful in its own way, and I think you can make a great hero. Hitashi's stoic features had crumbled away as tears streaked down his face. Maybe that was how he looked when Dave offered to take him to I-Island way back then. The boy choked and whipped at his nose. Sensei, he sniffed, looking him in the eye. Nobody's ever told me that. Don't get me wrong, it won't be easy for you, and it's not a guarantee yet. He turned the document towards the hero wannabe and pointed at the faults. His physical fitness exam. With all but a select few exceptions, physical fitness is beyond important for a hero, and your results were just barely better than his when he was Hitoshi's age. Are less than stellar. What do I have to do? He couldn't help but smile just a little bit more at that response. It's too late for the entrance exam, but given your grades and exam scores, you should pass the written proportion. May is when we hold the sports festival. By then, you'll need to have a sub-8-minute mile and the ability to do at least 10 pull UPS. That's it. Hitoshi almost laughed. You're right, that's not very heroic, is it? Oh, I know. Make it to the tournament section of the sports festival and you'll be allowed to stay in the hero course. He might have to check if he actually had the authority to do that. Understood. Hitoshi bowed, a giant smile on his face. Thank you for this chance, sensei. I won't let you down. I'm counting on it. Mostly because he wanted to see just how far he could get Hitoshi to push his quirk. XXXX Izuku let out a yawn, as he made his way off campus for what felt like the first time in forever. On top of class, he also managed to do a grand total of 8 interviews. Alone. Most of them didn't stand out, but Hitoshi's just made him smile just by thinking about it. Nay, Izuku-sensei. Nejire asked as she hopped up beside him, her book bag held in front of her as she traveled beside him. Speaking of smiles. He turned to look at his student. She was hovering again. What is it, Nejire? And you know you should walk when you're out of school, right? Huh. She looked down at her feet and squeaked before landing. Sorry, sensei, I just get happy and then I start floating. But why are you so happy? And tired? Did sensei get a girlfriend? He let out a laugh as he turned out the front gates. Nothing like that, Nejire. I just had a busy day filled with interviews for potential first years. Oh, so that's why you look so tired. You actually had to work today. Her hair swayed violently as a sudden gust of wind hit them both. It was slightly wet and he saw a dark spot grow on her coat, followed by another, as the first few drops of rain suddenly started up. Right, he forgot to check the weather today. Maybe he still had an umbrella in his bag? I'll have you know I work hard every day, Nejire. I'm just teasing you, Izuku-sensei. She laughed, swaying from side to side as she dug through her own bag. Another gust of wind and the rain began to build up. Aha! He found it? How did he use this one again? Oh right. There was a button on the side. A thin green slime-like string shot out of his umbrella and latched onto the sidewalk a few feet away. Then it was ripped out of his hands and stuck on the concrete like it was cemented onto it. Right, Melissa's grappling hook. Why did she make it look like an umbrella? Sensei, the rain stopped pouring on him as Nejire took a step closer to him, her giant umbrella, looking like spring sneezed all over blocking the rain. What was that? Thank you, Nejire. He sighed, closing his bag up. That was a gift from a friend of mine. And now it'll be stuck there until at least tomorrow. I see. Seems useful. She half laughed, still holding the umbrella up over his head. Did sensei forget his actual umbrella? He wasn't even certain he owned an umbrella. It appears so. Then let me walk you home, sensei. She stuck her tongue out, adjusting her bag with her free hand. You live nearby, right? Yeah. Wait, how'd you know that? If you rode a train you probably wouldn't be as late. Ouch, now he was getting roasted by his own student? The rain began to pick up, turning into a harsh deluge. I wouldn't want to impose on you, Nejire, but if you could take me to the nearest store I'd be able to buy my own umbrella. She nodded, and began to lead him through the rain. Hey sensei, Nejire hummed as they waited at a corner. You're not going to be teaching the third years, are you? Nope, by that point your work-study program will be in full force, so you simply won't have the time for my class, and I won't have the time either. I'm going to be busy teaching a bunch of classes this spring. Well, I'm happy you're going to be a full-time teacher. Nejire hummed, nearly skipping next to him as they crossed the street. But I'm going to miss you being my sensei. I really liked your class and I feel like I can really become a hero because of you. Was this how Hitoshi felt earlier? No, that couldn't be it. Some rain must have just hit him in the tear duct or something. Thanks, Nejire. That actually means a lot to hear from one of my favorite students. But hey, even after my class, I'll still be your sensei, right? Nejire hummed, placing a finger on her cheek. I guess you could still be my sensei, Does that mean I can still show up and ask you a bunch of questions every day? Sure, I'll probably be opening up the playground after class like the support class does the workshop, that way I can still assist students that need help developing their quirks. They turned a corner and a store came into view. But I'm not sure it'd be useful to you. I think if you wanted to improve you'd have to force a major breakthrough, but you could still train your quirk to improve your endurance. Oh, I'm sure you could think of some new way to torture me. She stuck her tongue out at him and leaned over to bump him in the shoulder. But really I just want to spend time with you. You're like my favorite sensei ever. Oh, I know. When I don't have work study, can I help you with the after-school quirk theory class? She gasped, turning to him, her blue eyes sparkling like when he first told her she could fly. She floated in the air, feet tucked behind her like she had been stuck in the middle of a jump for joy. I can be your ta, please, Izuku-sensei. She was so excitable. Sure, I'd be happy to have your help. XXXX Izuku-sensei came out of the store after a minute and unfurled a plain black umbrella. He really should have gotten something green. Or one that had All Might on it. Was there an All Might umbrella? Probably. He had a flash drive, so why not an umbrella? Would an All Might umbrella be a good present for Izuku? Nejire jumped over to Izuku and tapped her umbrella against his like she was making a toast. Boop. Boop. Was that what she was going with? Thanks for walking me to the store, Nejire. Izuku gave his usual nervous chuckle. I'll see you in class tomorrow, okay? No way, Izuku-sensei. She stood next to him, making certain to hold eye contact for as long as possible. I wanna see if you live close to me. That way when I get bored and have a question about quirk theory and stuff, I can show up at your place and ask you questions. His chuckle turned into full-blown laughter as they made their way through the streets. Fine, but I'm not going to let you see inside. It's a mess. Huh, that was easier than she thought it would be. But if you really want to ask me questions, you could always just email me. It's on the syllabus I gave out at the start of class. But that takes forever, and by the time I get the answer, I'll have like 6 more questions. And it's not the same as asking you in person. Really, she just liked talking to him. The questions were a bonus. Or was it the questions that she liked and talking to him was the bonus? Izuku paused and began to fish something out from his bag. You have a point, and if you're going to be helping me next year, it wouldn't hurt to give you my number in case something comes up. So long as you promise not to give it out to anyone and to not actually call me every time you get a question. And no texts after 9 p.m. He pulled out his cell phone. It had an All Might protective case, and smiled at her. Without missing a beat, she tapped her phone against his, sharing their contact info. Instantly. Was it really that easy? Not only was she going to find out where he lived today, but she also got his contact info? Maybe he thought she was harmless? Well, she was. What was the right word for it? Was there a right word for it? She'll just have to work hard and make sure that by the time she graduates, Izuku would think of her as someone dateable. Good thing she had over a year to do just that. Looking down at her phone, she saw Izuku's profile picture. He was standing in a lab coat next to an older man, and a blonde-haired girl also in lab coats. Who was she? Was she a friend of his? An ex? A sister? Unrequited love? Hey, Izuku-sensei, who are the people in your profile picture? Huh? Oh, man, I need to update that. That was back when I was still on I-Island. The guy David Shield, he's the reason why I was able to go to I-Island. The girl is his daughter, Melissa. They're good friends of mine. Well, at least she didn't have any competition. Chapter 6. She had competition? She had major competition? Nejire did her best to keep her smile as she watched her geeky-sensei and crush Izuku laugh as he held up one of the numerous gadgets that the tank top-wearing pink-haired cutie had made. The girl had interesting yellow eyes that had crosshairs in them, and her thick pink hair was pushed back by some complex headgear that probably did all sorts of neat things. All of that was fine. It certainly didn't bother her at all that Izuku was completely ignoring her. Sure, she asked to come. Sure, this was about interviewing Mei, but really? She wanted his attention, too. And she wanted to play with neat gadgets too. Haha, this is absolutely amazing, Mei. Izuku laughed as he used one of her gadgets. This one was just like his umbrella grappling hook but not made of green slime, to hang from the ceiling. That's not even its final form. Mei cackled, her goggles falling onto her face as she bounced up and down. She had the same mad, overly enthusiastic Look that Izuku had. Once I'm able to get more materials, I'll be able to create a launcher that'll send it well over 100 meters and be able to pierce concrete. Not to mention I'll be able to create a dozen other designs I don't have the money for. Just thinking about all those delicious materials has me salivating. I have so many super cute babies to create. Do you take requests? Izuku-sensei asked as he was now hanging upside down by Mei's gadget. The support course students and head are refusing to make me anything new, but I frequently need new gadgets that will test their quirks. How fast can you make something? Depends on what it is, how big it is, how long you want it to last, and what materials there are. Mei beamed, saluting Izuku as she got way too close to him. But I can take on any challenge, even boneheaded ones that go against common sense. Good answer. Izuku fell from the rope and landed in a heap before he popped back up. Really, it's impressive you've managed to accomplish all this with a junkyard, and while being homeschooled as well. Even if your exam scores aren't the best, you clearly have more than enough talent to get into the UA support course. Yes, I knew you'd be impressed. Mei placed her hands on her hips, beaming with pride, her chest bouncing. Wasn't she supposed to be in middle school? Wait, wasn't she about the same size in middle school? Oh right. Puberty is weird. Thank you for coming all the way out here, sensei. I look forward to working with you in the support course. Sure, but if you want me to teach you, you'll have to sign up for quirk analysis. It's really the only class I'm qualified to teach at the moment, and I'm sure that even someone with your natural talents could benefit from it. Izuku adopted his more teacherly persona, his smile replaced by a soft frown that he had when he was trying to figure something out. I do just have a few questions for you though. Oh, well, I guess this is an interview. After all, I guess I couldn't get away without a few questions. Mei scratched the back of her head. She had questions too. Like, why did they go all the way out to a junkyard to meet this girl? Why did it look like she was sleeping in a garage? Where were her parents? What did that thing over there do? Why were her eyes like that? And was her hair soft? And how old was she? Also, did it hurt to sleep in a hammock like that? Was that grease on her nose or just a skin thingy? Maybe it was something else or something. So many questions? But Izuku-sensei said that she shouldn't be the one asking these questions and to leave it to him, and she wanted to impress him with her impulse control, and it was getting really difficult to not just blurt something out. What if she exploded? Why's your assistant floating? Mei asked, looking over at her. Because she does that when she's not thinking about it. I'm really tempted to tie a rock to her, or something. Izuku chuckled, flashing a smile at her. She was floating again. It was getting hard to not do that unless she was tired or something. Sorry Izuku, I was just thinking about stuff. Maybe her quirk turned all the questions she didn't ask into power? Right, back to what I was saying. Why UA? With your genius desire for inventing, you'd be able to do well there. There'd be more chances for you to dash. I want to go to UA because that's where the heroes go. Mei nodded to herself. I want to be able to support my future clients and have my name known, not just some new label from I-Island. No, all of my babies are going to be custom-made works of art tailored designed for the hero's needs or my own madness. Izuku nodded, a growing smile on his face. Very admirable, Mei, though I do think that a visit to I-Island would be helpful to you. If you sign up for my class, I'll think about taking you there over summer break during the expo. Izuku-sensei. She huffed, marching over to him to pull on his shirt. What about me? I want to go to I-Island too. It was true, even if she did mostly just want to spend time with Izuku over summer vacation. Sure, I-Island was far from the beach trip she wanted, where she'd woo him with this super cute bikini she bought earlier, but I-Island was a chance she wasn't going to miss. You do? But aren't you going to be busy with work study during that time? I know Mirio has already been scouted, but shouldn't you be looking into that as well? Yeah, but I won't be doing that for the whole summer. I'll still be able to bug you, and I'd definitely be able to go to I-Island with you. If you don't take me, I'll be upset with you. She used her secret weapon, ultra pouting. Besides, she still needed to find hero agencies that would accept her, something that might be easy after the sports festival. It didn't really work on Izuku-sensei, and he just laughed. Don't worry, Nejire, I have some connections back there, so I have a few guest passes for the expo. If you're free, I'll be happy to take you. I think you'd get along great with Melissa, both of you would. Huh. Mei perked up from a workbench, already working on a new project. You're still here? Did you need something else, sensei? I need to start looking for a new garage near UA. Well, apparently Mei did live in the garage. XXXX, thanks for letting me come with you today, Izuku-sensei, Nejire hummed as they walked down the road that lead to the junkyard that Mei had apparently adopted. It was a lot of fun meeting that girl. Izuku couldn't help but smile. Mei was that special kind of genius, and if he got in good with her early on, then he'd be able to request all sorts of new gadgets to develop his students' quirks. Like a set of leg weights for Nejire because she couldn't stop floating. Still, it said a lot that she could do it so naturally now, and it was better for her overall endurance and quirk development. As long as she didn't start sending out blasts just by sneezing. It was probably mostly okay. She did have her provisional license after all. No problem, you were a great help, but I just can't help but wonder why you'd want to waste your Saturday, especially since finals are coming up. Not that he was worried about Nejire passing her classes. She didn't ask a lot of questions because she didn't understand, she just wanted to know. It was a good trait about her, if somewhat impersonal. And you're right. Mei certainly was interesting. I think she'll be a good fit for UA. Are you sure you don't just want to let her in because she'll make you a bunch of new ways to torture us? Nejire landed next to him, hands behind her back and a skip in her step. Or maybe you just thought she was cute. What are you talking about, Nejire? She's way too young for me, and not my type. At least I think. Oh, sensei has a type. Nejire bounced over to him, smiling brightly. Tell me, I wanna know. Didn't they have this conversation before? Isn't that kind of personal, Nejire? She was all but in his face, her blue eyes sparkling with unbridled curiosity. There was no point in resisting her when she was like this. But, no, please Nejire, this isn't the kind of conversation I should be having with a student. I'm not going to talk to you about why I'm not attracted to one of my future students. Mostly because it's obvious. We're not talking about Mei anymore. Besides, I think she sweats oil or something. Wait, that sounded mean. I meant it in a good way, but I wanna know what kind of women sensei likes. Like, why didn't you date anybody back on I-Island? How did she not have his entire life story by this point? It wasn't like he didn't try to date someone on I-Island, but more often than not things just didn't work out for any number of reasons. Mostly because they were all busy. We were just kind of busy with research and school there. I realized that I wasn't really attracted to most of them despite being good friends. That wasn't to say there were no one-night stands or stress relief relationships. But those were few and far between. And not something he was going to tell one of his students about. Oh, so, huh. Nejire paused, placing a finger to her cheek and tilting her head. You didn't really tell me anything though. So you didn't really have a girlfriend back then? Not really, no. And that was all he was going to say on that subject. And are you looking for one now? Nejire asked, still skipping beside him as they headed towards the nearest train station. Because I heard Kayama-sensei say you were cute, and that if she was a few years younger she'd eat you alive. He sighed, pinching his nose as the still fresh memories replayed in his mind. I know, she tells me that once a week. So. Sensei doesn't want to date someone too young, or someone that's too old. Nejire hummed by his side, her hair swaying from side to side. What's Sensei's age range? That wasn't really what he said, but she wasn't wrong. If it was anybody but Nejire asking these questions he'd suspect something. But Nejire was always two things, cheerful and curious. He really enjoyed those traits about her. It probably said a lot that she really was the closest thing he had to a friend since moving back to Japan. Well, I think 10 years is a bit much, so maybe like 5 years at the most. He shrugged, he never really thought about it. Really, I just go with what feels comfortable. I see, Nejire hummed next to him, looking much happier for whatever reason. 5 years, huh? Yeah, something like that. I don't know, it's not set in stone. Personality mattered a lot, and just the overall feel he had for the person. Maybe he was being too picky about it? I mean, I do want a relationship at some point, but I haven't really tried to get one, I guess. A train sped past them, its brakes screeching as it slowed to the station just up ahead. And Nejire leaped in front of him, placing a finger onto his chest. Well then, Izuku, her lips curled into a smile when said his name, just his name. If you don't have a girlfriend by the time I graduate, I'll be your girlfriend. His mind did a funny thing as Nejire beamed at him. She stopped being just his student. just enough for him to realize that Nejire was a very attractive woman, and she was expressing interest in dating him. All at once he imagined what that would be like to date her, what life would be like with her at his side. And much like these past few months with her in his class, he found those thoughts filled with joy. The reality came crashing down. Nejire, you shouldn't tell me something like that, even if you're joking. He stepped to the side, trying not to look at her, mostly so that she wouldn't see the blush on his face or the fact that he was actually smiling. You're my student. For now maybe, but don't worry sensei, I won't do anything until we're both ready. She stood beside him, her usual distance feeling much closer than it really was. I'm just letting you know so you have more than a whole year to consider your options. He remained silent as they walked towards the train. He had heard about students getting crushes on their teachers, but he never thought it would be possible for someone to get a crush on him. He was just some nerdy quirkless guy? Maybe Nejire was just teasing him? Their eyes met when he tried to sneak a look at her. Her smile brightened, causing his blood rush and his heart to pound. He needed to calm down. He needed to be rational. Nejire was just his student. That was it. His funny, amusing best friend of a student that was really pretty and probably the cutest thing in the world. And fuck. He was so screwed. Please don't tell anybody else what you said today, Nejire. It might make things worse. She tilted her head as they boarded the train, Nejire sitting just to his left. Oh, I know sensei, I don't want you to lose your job because of me, that's why. We're going to wait until I graduate, that way you won't get in trouble for dating your student. Or you could get a girlfriend by then and I'll back off. And what if you graduate and I don't want to date you? She hummed, finger tapping her cheek. Do you not want to date me, sensei? Please don't use the word date and sensei in the same. Chapter 4. Izuku looked out at the cold winter land.